Coming to you from the city of the weird. Exploring topics from the esoteric and unexplored to dimensions unknown. Shining a light of truth on the darkest corners of our reality. Welcome to the Curious Realm. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this pre-recorded edition of the Curious Realm podcast. Chris Jordan coming at you, well, in a pre-recorded fashion from Austin, Texas. I am actively on the road right now in Salem, Massachusetts, doing some research there and visiting some of my wife's family, and also recording next week's episode, where we will be talking with Dennis Stone, the owner of America's Stonehenge. While I'm in Salem, Massachusetts, I am taking a day trip to Salem, New Hampshire to go see Dennis Stone and these amazing structures at America's Stonehenge. I cannot wait to go up there. I've had him on the show so many times. He is an amazing individual, and this is really one of the enigmas of archaeology here in America. It'll be really cool to go visit the site and see it and meet him in person. Our guest this evening in the first part is our good friend Mike Turber of 5x5 News. You can catch up with him. You can, of course, go to curiousrealm.com/videos. His videos are embedded right there on our videos page. In addition to that, you can follow him on YouTube. Just go to YouTube at 5x5 News US. You can also find him on Facebook at 5x5 News. You can find him at Twitter at 5x5 News. You can find him behind the scenes of so many things like Tiger King and extracting people from friggin' Iraq and, you know, so much out there. Welcome back to the show, Mike Turber. How are you doing, my friend?
Hey, buddy, I'm doing quite well. Yeah, you're on the road. You're up there. You're going to have some fun at the American Stonehenge. That should be an interesting day for you.
Oh, it's going to be super fun, man. What trips me out is that I heard about it. My ex, when I lived in Maine, used to talk about it all the time. And she was like, I know it's there. I've never been to it. But she was like, I remember like missing a class trip to it because I was sick. You know, she was like, but it's right there. It's a strange thing. And we'd pass by the exit all the time, you know, going to see her family, traveling from Maine to Massachusetts. Then years later, I have this show and end up meeting the guy that owns America's Stonehenge. So,
did they ever figure out who actually built it? Because there was some question as to whether or not they still haven't figured it out.
They have never figured out who's built it, Mike. And that's what's really interesting is that, you know, you'd think like the native cultures, but when Anglo settlers came to the area, they came across these ruins. They weren't like, hey, here's a fully built wall. Like they came across what appeared to be ruins everywhere. And they asked the native tribes that they had befriended. And they were like, no, those have been here since we got here.
Yeah. We didn't make it. We didn't know he did it. We thought you guys did it.
I don't know. Beats me, man, but they've been here a long time.
Yeah, well, they were here obviously a long time before, you know, anyone who claims to have landed here. But obviously someone landed here before, before Columbus and the Vikings. Dude,
the archaeoastronomic alignments that happen there are friggin' wild. It's crazy. Crazy. It's so cool, dude. So yeah, I can't wait to be there in person. Check it out. Get to go around, take pictures, video, all that kind of good stuff.
I can't wait to hear your report on that.
Oh yeah, it's going to be a great one. It's going to be fantastic. And then shortly after I get back, I'll be interviewing him. But I was supposed to hook up with Sam Baltrusis while I was there, who's not only a paranormal investigator who spent a lot of time and many, many years in Salem, but is actually a living descendant of Sarah Proctor.
Oh, wow.
The accuser in the Salem witch trials. So absolutely. he was crazy busy. He just came out with, here it is right here, with his new book, Fueled by Fear. And I saw him on a show, tracked him down. We've become friends, and we're going to try to hook up while I was there and do like a bang up on the road episode. But unfortunately, he was crazy busy. I'm crazy busy, so it'll happen afterward. But I'm excited about that as somebody who, I'm a theater freak. That's how I got into my industry. The Crucible was a huge, huge point in my theater life. So yeah. And Salem's one of my favorite cities in the country. Amazing history, amazing city, amazing people there. So yeah, it's going to be a fun 5 days. It's going to be super fun.
Yeah, so, a lot of history there. It sounds like the paranormal activity runs in the family a little bit, maybe, and who knows? It could be fruitful for you. You might want to be there at night too. Check it out.
Absolutely, that's just it. It'll be nice to stay overnight and things like that there. I've never had that opportunity. The numerous times that I've been to Salem, it's always been day trips. So,
good. Well, there's plenty of video. I can't wait to see that one.
It's going to be wicked cool. And hey, speaking of audio, video, things like that, let's go ahead and start busting into things, man. Because whenever we have you on, we are always talking about new emerging technologies, technologies that have just hit the patent shelf, or just patents were just released publicly. Things like that. And one of the things, there were a few articles. You're one of the many people who are a group of the Curious Realm on Facebook. You're a member of that group. John Hall, Robert Duncan, things like that. And whenever I post certain articles, I'll always tag you in it, just to kind of be like, hey, I know whenever you hop on Facebook, you'll see the alert and you'll go to it, Right. And there was one recently, the one out of the war zone about the news. Skunkworks cryptically teases NGAD-like aircraft silhouette, which is on their new patch, all kinds of things. This is, of course, the quote Dark Star that was used famously in the new Maverick Top Gun.
Actually, this one wasn't.
Oh, the Dark Star? I thought that was... No. I guess that's a SR-72.
That's the SR-72. The Son of Blackbird is kind of what they used. So the design that they used for Top Gun was pretty close to that. The NGAD is what this is the Next Generation Air Dominance Fighter, or whatever they're going to call it after that. So the NGAD, which is your Next Generation Air Dominance aircraft, is going to be built, but they're expecting about 200 units to be built at probably $200 million a piece. And that's what that design is. It's also the design is kind of missing on. They have this banner that they have that has like a generational view of all the aircraft that they've made since inception, or back since the inception of Skunkworks, actually. So Skunkworks has that huge history of, bringing us several aircraft. Obviously, the SR-71 is what most people will remember. But also, the stealth aircraft of today that we haven't even seen yet are the ones that are being looked at. But the NGAD is where the next major funds are going to go into. It's going to be replacing the F-22. The F-22 is actually testing some of the module type devices that will be used on the NGAD. So that's what's happening now. We've had one of the NGAD flyers or NGAD aircraft that's been flying now for about probably 4 years now. It started, it's been out and about, so to speak. And another one, there's two main competing companies. I think Northrop Grumman has their version out, and of course Lockheed is working on actually 3 variants of different aircraft that we're going to obviously see here before too long. One of which is obviously the SR-72, which is already flown. I think the one that's already flown is a scaled version. It's not like the full on version, but that will be very close to what you see in Top Gun. And then the NGAD, their variant of it, whether or not it's flown or not, we can't really tell. I mean, we kind of have an idea that it probably has.
Nor will they tell.
No, they won't tell us yet. They don't want to confirm anyone.
They can neither confirm nor deny that there is a working prototype.
Yeah, because then you'll get guys like me that get access to the facility, and we're standing outside, and you can even see the video I put up showing a tour of basically a tour of Skunk Works to give people an idea of what each of the buildings are for.
Let's check some of that out real quick. I've got that queued up.
Here is Plant 42. In the background here, what you see, that building is the smaller building is building 611. That is the engineering building. That's where some of your administration offices are and what have you. Behind it, which you can't see, the big building there, I'll tell you that what that is in a minute. But behind it is building 608. Building 608 is where they have the simulations. So all your simulators are in there for flying basically all the aircraft.
Huge complex. Massive complex. Even just their assembly plant is immense.
Yeah, Plant 42, the 600 or 605, I can't remember which building is the big one. I think it's 600 or 605. 600 is the administration building when you're checking in. That's right. So I think it's 605.
And this is just where things are built. It's not where things are assembled.
Well, no, there's some assembly that's done there too. There's the paint building. If you're off where I'm at in that video, I can't see the video, but I know where I was when I took it. If you were able to look to your left, you would see another big building, which is where they do the painting and some of the light assembly work there. But some of the assembly is done between the buildings. Whereas I've been there before, and they've had huge outdoor tents, so to speak, that they would actually do anything to cover up what they're doing. But they had like tents out there. It looked like a circus was being held at Lockheed, and they were doing some of the assembly work on some of the drones. So,
just on a nice sunny day, you know.
Oh yeah,
hey, it's a nice day out. Let's bring out the hoopas and get some work done outside, fellas. Make a picnic of it.
Plant 42 is home to Northrop Grumman, home to Lockheed, and is home to a couple others. Plant 44, which if you ever try to find Plant 44, good luck with that, because it's even more secretive than Plant 42 as far as its location. I'll tell you where it's at. It's over in Tucson. It's right there at the International Airport. But you won't be able to find it. If you search for Plant 44, you'll see the internet has been scrubbed of everything having to do with Plant 44, but that's Raytheon.
I guess it was my misunderstanding that things were basically assembled whole in a different location. Like there's some assemblies done, like engines are assembled, things like that, but nothing ever leaves Plant 42 as a completed product.
Yeah.
Was my understanding. Like security wise, it's like it'll show up fuselage one day, you know.
Yeah. Well, the SR-71
the next day, things like that.
Yeah, SR-71 was shipped in big wooden crates, and they would take these big wooden crates and put them on the back of a truck and just truck it over to Edward, and do that. But yeah, they wouldn't fly it out of there, because I mean if you've ever had the chance to see an SR-71 take off, it is loud. It is probably one of the loudest, other than the Concorde. I can say between the Concorde and the C-5A Galaxy, the SR-71 is probably the third loudest plane I've ever witnessed take off. Wow. I mean, it's just ridiculously loud. But once it goes up, it starts climbing pretty good. And there's a lot of cool stories. You've got to look up the story of Speed Check SR-71. Anyone listening to this, if you want to laugh, if you're an aviation enthusiast, just search for Speed Check SR-71 and you'll hear the greatest story you've ever heard.
Well, this concept craft it's beautiful. The concept drawings of it are absolutely phenomenal. And there you can see the many silhouettes of craft created by Skunk Works. And of course, never forget the still working and operational Dragon Lady, who monitors and patrols our skies of Chinese balloon fame. Lately.
Yeah, they've been known to do that. They've been known to
which come to find out, they apparently gathered no data. Air quotes for the listeners out there, not the live viewers. That is the story. I thought I tagged you in that story the other day too.
Or maybe you did. I may not have seen it, but no, I haven't heard that. I know for a fact that's BS.
Oh yeah. Exactly. I was like, yeah, okay.
Yeah, because they were jamming. Part of the jamming process is to take the signals that's being sent out from the craft.
CNN politics. Chinese surveillance balloon did not did not collect information over U.S. Pentagon says.
Right.
Which may be the fact of. Yeah, I mean, technically they're not lying. It's kind of like saying, hey, you guys investigate UFOs? No, we do not. They investigate UAPs. They didn't collect any data. We were jamming it.
Yeah, they were collecting it like crazy because nothing can stop them from collecting, optical information and what have you. But they probably... I think they should have worded it differently, where they said that the information transmitted from the balloon never made it to where it was supposed to go because we were jamming the hell out of it. So we had 3 U-2s that went. There are three, or there are more than 3, but I'll just say there's 3 trips to the balloon by U-2s. One of which was Dragon Lady 01 or 11, and one was number 99. And one has the dorsal and one doesn't. The dorsal is that EW package that sits on top of the U2. It looks like what a kind of like what a extra fuel pylon looks like on a normal plane, but except it's on top of the plane and sticks up. So it's kind of a weird looking thing. But the famous picture that we have of the guy doing the U2 selfie. You can see from the shadow that was cast onto the balloon that he did not specifically have it. But I think obviously one of the other ones did. But he also has his own, electronic package, which allows him to do some light jamming, but nothing like a Growler could do or what have you, or the other U2 that has the bigger package.
Yeah, the specifically made electronic warfare package, and that was something that I wanted to get into a little bit with this new fighter, because I clicked one of the tabs inside of it and it went to another Drive article with the headline, quote, "Big emphasis on spectral warfare in Air Force's next generation air dominance plans. U.S. aircraft will leverage large swaths of the RF spectrum, including electronic warfare, infrared masking, and lasers." Now, granted, we have spoken ad nauseum now, Mike, and I will bring it up again, the Knowledge Vault article with the declassified laser patents for the laser pod. And that is some, here we go, the F-18 laser pod countermeasures. This is just one of the many uses for lasers on aircraft, folks, and that's using it as a form of electronic chaff where they can project a hologram, a laser hologram, to distract sensitive heat-seeking missiles, things like that. Basically create a craft bigger than the one that they're flying and hotter than the one that they're flying, going any speed they want. Now, that gives a lot of options in the other worlds too, but to think about this article here about using large swaths of the RF spectrum in conjunction with that plasma-based noise cancellation. Because once again, the idea of that there is now plasma-based noise cancellation. This just came out July 6th, folks. if you're talking about UFO technology, UAP technology, if you're talking about cases of TR-3B, things like that, silent aircraft hovering, everything else, we have talked about plasma-based generation of energy being used as a propulsion system for these systems.
Yeah.
And if you're
already talked about plasma-based generation of false targets as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, precisely. Like you're already using plasma for all these systems. And having to have a plasmic field around this metallic object anyway for it to defy physics.
Yep.
In these ways.
And the other thing too is the plasma has been. I mean, plasma in acoustics has been around for a very long time. It's not necessarily a new technology, but what is new is the ability to match the resonance of a specific area or object.
Yep.
And once you match that specific resonance of the object, you basically cancel it out. So if it's making noise, it will no longer make noise. It may be able to do a cross spectrum into the visible range. Maybe if you do something in phase or out of phase.
Can't imagine it wouldn't. And the what's crazy, I just watched the 1984 Philadelphia experiment.
There you go.
Well,
yeah, that was
same concept. They were working with plasmic high frequency fields in Project Rainbow. That is an actual government project. That is still to this day one of those that, like, I'd love to have a bunch of Project Rainbow documents in my knowledge vault. Good luck finding them.
Yeah, good luck finding that and finding people that will talk about it. I mean, that's
a known project, like no denial that it existed, everything else, but there aren't any, like, everything is still a read onto topic.
Right.
So you find
now, whether or not they did time travel or something, I mean, that was a movie made artifact. But the other thing, the main thing was to make it invisible.
Yes. And to make it invisible, not only to radar, but optically invisible.
Yeah. Can't shoot what you can't see. Cannot shoot what you can't see.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
And that's the thing too, and when they say cross spectrum, they're talking about literally every type of spectrum. They're trying everything. Yeah, because I mean, what good is it if you have a target that you're looking at and that target disappears, and you're like, oh, okay, I'll just look at it over here on this other spectrum, and you click a button, and now you can see it again, kind of like the RF versus infrared versus whatever, and different types of radar, like whether it's phased array or whether it's the sweep type or anything like that. They're all using similar but different technologies, but they're all inside that spectrum. And if you can have something that's cross spectrum that can basically just disappear, then you're good to go on a lot of things. You can just fly over, you have impunity. You can just do whatever you want. And that's where they're going with that. And I think the next generation fighter, along with the next generation fighters, are going to also carry with them at least two drones that will be interlinked in with all of the systems and command and control. And once you go over your enemy with, it's like having extra wingmen with you. You're good to go. And this may be the last manned fighter that we bring into the system. This may be it. This may spell the end of it, which in some ways is kind of like, almost like you want to fight for, no, we got to have people there because people can make decisions or whatever. But then again, with AI and the stuff that's coming forward, do you really want to put people directly in harm's way when it's truly not necessary? So we got drones that are doing that today. They're pulling off some of the missions that we have. That guys wake up in Arizona or Nevada or wherever and fly missions halfway around the world, and then they come home at night. And they're guaranteed pretty much to come home at night. There's no one's going to shoot them down from where they're at. Yeah. And that's a good thing. I think overall it's a good thing. Stealth autonomous ships and stuff like this. It's starting to get a little weird when you start thinking about it. That all these robotic type aircraft and spacecraft and also watercraft are going to have no people on board. So going to be weird. It's going to be a little weird.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, it came out a while back. I was trying to find the Jane's Defense Weekly article, and I can't find it for the life of me, where they were talking about soldiers having a new helmet that would allow them to control up to 5 drones each.
Yep.
But I want to say it was in the specifications for the new YF-22 that it was supposed to have a drone swarm that was operable by thought, by the pilot.
Well, operable by thought, but also by vision. It's going to take into account where the pilot's looking. That helmet definitely watches where you're looking. Yep. And once you keep in mind when you're in the F-22, the helmet that you're wearing, I can't remember the acronym for it off the top of my head. But that helmet allows you full situational awareness, 360 degrees. And it's a very weird thing to experience when you're sitting in that cockpit and you're strapped in and you're flying along and you look around, you don't see your hands. You don't really see the instrumentation. You know, once you turn that on, you can see through the floor of the plane and literally see the ground. So that gives you the ability to track, because a pilot, I used to find this funny, but I fully understand now why after flying some of these simulators. Is that when the pilot is flying a plane and they're tracking an object, they continuously turn their head to keep reacquiring that target. And in your mind, you're thinking, trust your instruments. You don't need to be looking. I mean, because that's the distraction. You know, what's going on in front of you? You keep looking behind you and what have you. But that helmet allows you to do that and becomes a part of the equation, because obviously, if you're going to be doing that anyway, you might as well have the targeting and acquisition control inside the helmet itself. And that's what that does. It allows the person just to look at the target. And then now apparently there's ways by using thought or by other methods that you can actually do a Fox 2 or Fox 3 and fire these missiles off.
Absolutely. And that's just it. I mean, good Lord, back to the days of, it just left my head. The name of I guess it was the Cobra attack helicopter that was probably the first one that came out with a actual tracking helmet.
The Comanche? Yeah.
The Comanche. Yes, thank you. Where the reticle over the pilot's eye actively tracked their eye movements to, as opposed to a standard heads-up display.
Yeah, and that's always weird too. I mean, and that helmet can work with or without the pilot even wearing it. I mean, wherever you look, the actual turret will move, and then it gets that in that general proximity. But where you're looking is where it's going to fire. So if you turn the helmet back and forth, the turret's going to turn, and then wherever you look, if you just like the speaking spell that Stephen Hawking would use, he would look at something, and if he blinked or if he looked at something long enough, that would activate whatever it was he was doing. You had to be real careful too to actuate stuff. But he would arm the missiles or arm the turret gun, and then wherever he looked, that thing would go. And that back then, keep in mind how much of an advance of technology that was back then, and that's almost nothing today compared to what we're talking about now. It's not even in comparison, not even the same group, but it is the beginning, the precursor to what has come after. And that's what we're looking at now and everything we imagined back then, even back when that little device came out, I think it was a Star Wars thing where you could actually fly a plane with this thing you put on your head. Imagine. Yeah, that was like a $29 toy.
Yep.
And imagine what a much more advanced version of that can do. And now when the pilot gets into the plane, there's all kinds of things that he's hooked into. I mean, basically it's a medical situation too, where you've got all these electrodes attached to you. Some are inside the helmet, and you become a part of the plane. That's what they're getting at. The NGAD should do that. Actually, it will do that.
I'm showing a video from Air Source right now where two F-18s just released a autonomous drone swarm.
Mm-hmm.
that are targeting things on the ground, like known quantitative targets, things like that.
Some of them are destructive. They're little kamikaze type drones where they just.
Absolutely. Those are being used to great extent in Ukraine right now against Russia. And even if you consider the fact of, hey, you could drop an EW swarm, that could go in and EMP a location or electronically jam a location and stop all communications from a simple flyby.
Exactly. You just send out your drones ahead of you. That way you basically neutralize the target's defense systems by taking out their radar, taking out whatever systems that they're employing to determine what's coming over the hill, so to speak. And that's what you have is these drones are equipped with all of that. And some of them are one-time use drones where they know that, it has to loiter on point for however long. And now that, we have drones that can go easily 12 hours. A lot of people saying, well, I've never seen a drone go more than 30 minutes. Well, we got drones that are flying.
You don't have one.
Exactly.
And whenever you look at these drones, they're literally the size of a large bird, man. It's not crazy. It's or it is crazy. It's wild.
Well, I think people got conditioned to the drones that they were dropping these like these little grenades into the trenches where these Russian soldiers are sleeping and stuff. So they see that and they think that's pretty low tech, which it actually is. But at the same time, it did a lot of damage. But they're not going to show all the high tech drones that they have over there too. There's a whole team in Ukraine that does nothing but modifies and builds drones. That's all they do. And they have come up with some rather unique ways to solve some problems, one of which is just what you mentioned about sending over some electronic warfare equipment to neutralize the communications. If you can't communicate back to your command, if you're on the front lines, you're not going to get any ammo. You're not going to get any food. You're not going to be able to tell where you are or nothing. And that's what these drones can do.
Yeah. And I mean, I've got an article up right here from Business Insider about Daniel Pack of Unmanned Systems Labs right down the road in San Antonio. I'll have to try and contact him, but secured a $400,000 grant providing brainwave measuring equipment, or EEG, which includes a set of electrodes placed on the scalp to read brainwaves. And so his thing is being able to control drones with your brain. And once again, there's numerous technologies out there already, all kinds of things. So it's pretty remarkable to see that.
Yeah, and the main thing that a pilot needs is situational awareness. So when they're flying, they need as few distractions as possible. Used to they would show an aircraft and the myriad of controls and buttons and stuff like this that you would see. You say, oh my God, how can they do this while they're flying? They have all these switches and controls, and they got to punch in their waypoints and all this other stuff. Now they're simplifying that. It's almost like looking at an Apollo, lunar lander and command module as compared to a Dragon from SpaceX, and it's just the beauty and simplicity of streamlining so many of those different things. But now it's it to
I am so sorry. I don't know that I would ever trust myself stepping into a Dragon capsule.
What is that?
If you look over my shoulder, you've been in my studio, you've seen the knobs, you've seen the buttons, you've seen the sliders. They're there for a reason.
There's backups for that.
I got 3 of the same compressor out in the garage for a reason. I'm NASA triple redundant. I do not trust, because I guess I've seen very expensive video processors that are running very expensive, like $30,000, $50,000 audio consoles, where it's like, oh no, it's got like triple redundancy. Like those things don't lock up. Yeah, I've seen them lock up. I've seen them lock up dependably and more than once. I wouldn't want to be in that touch panel capsule when the video processor hangs up.
Yeah, that would be a problem.
As opposed to like, Apollo 11, where it's like, okay, well, we've still got a manual radio. Let's call home and let's see how we can bypass this entire system.
And then you have a team of guys in
Houston. You've got a physical system that you can bypass, not like, well, I guess we bring some extra video cards with us.
Yeah, or somebody bring their laptop. Anybody bring a laptop or an iPad or something?
Damn, the USB port went out on the touch screen. We're screwed.
Yeah. Well, you can't argue a perfect record, though. They literally have.
No, they have a phenomenal record. I'm just beefing things.
Fun.
That's the only point that I see. Like, yes, the other things were clunky, but hey, man, analog works. Like,
have you been to the Boca Chica yet?
I have not. I have not had a chance to be to Boca yet, and there is some amazing stuff down there. It is phenomenal. I know friends that go regularly who live up around the place. So,
but
to see them touting loud and proud, Mike, the full spectrum dominance of these upcoming fighters, RF spectrum, electronic warfare, infrared masking, and lasers. Like,
and that's the thing too. Our competitors, so to speak, or our adversaries, don't have a lot of these technologies. Keep in mind, these are technologies that they're admitting that we're working on. I mean, you can imagine what's going on behind the scenes. I mean, there's a couple of the buildings and a couple of areas inside these buildings that are there at Skunk Works that when you go into them, you can see that they would make this partitioned wall. And then behind that wall, you knew something really, really cool was there because they would paint it and they put some weird patterns of paint on there or whatever, and then some numbers and stuff. And you know, what's back there? And they go, oh, can't take you over there. And so your mind's going, well, I definitely, I got to go to the restroom. Can I go? You want to sneak over there and take a look?
Yeah.
But yeah, the technologies that we're talking about are the ones that are being released. The technologies, and keep in mind that a lot of the battlefield that's going to be done, a lot of the communication work, which a lot of the NROL, the National Reconnaissance Office, and a lot of the NGA launches that have been done recently involve putting into space communications satellites that are not only, basically spy satellites, but the communication satellites that are being done for the military. Because TDRS, which is the TDRS, which is Terminal Data Relay Satellite, that is the system, the tried and true system that is now borrowed by NASA and some of the other government agencies. And if they're letting other agencies utilize the TDRS system, that something new is either online or in the works. And what that means is that the communication, keep in mind, if you have 200 aircraft that are all networked together and each of the 200 aircraft have at least 2 drones that are with them, now you're looking at an additional 400 aircraft. So you now have a total of at least 600 aircraft that will all be communicating simultaneously through a single network system to give an overall view of the battlefield of what's going on in situational awareness. It's like nothing we've ever seen.
It is real time, man. And one of the conferences I miss working is NVIDIA-Con. I used to work the NVIDIA conference every year, and I remember the year just before they had the first drone racing league where it was going to be automated versus human drone. And NVIDIA was there. They were presenting with Lockheed Martin and F1. And they were talking about tracking the data on an F1 track. And each car in the race per second sending over 1 million data points.
Yeah. That's
per
crazy.
Second.
And that's just a car. Imagine
in real time. In real time.
Yeah, in real time. And that information is incredibly valuable to that team to get that car to win. And here you are, and then you have
that was 5 or 6 years ago. Now that I worked that conference and sat in that, and I mean I saw people live mapping the surface of the sun with NVIDIA processors, all kinds of things. But to see I saw a chain of 256 NVIDIA cards. I can't tell you where I saw it, but we'll just say that there was 256 cards put together to create
let's just say that the
array
data was turned into it is an array, but it was turned into a visual presentation. But also the cards themselves were faster than the current processors that were out there. So they were able to essentially create a supercomputer out of graphics cards, effectively, and because of the processing power that they had, and that you could link them together, make an array. And the 256 one that I saw was the small one. The large one was elsewhere in a different facility, actually in a different state. But you can imagine that if that's something that can be utilized, and keep in mind, NVIDIA has their government side to them where they do specific things as well. Yeah, and a lot of companies do. A lot of the companies that we know of every day, Johnson & Johnson, I mean, Kellogg's even. I'm like, Kellogg's? Are you serious?
Hey, man, somebody's got to make the food for all that stuff. Yeah, somebody's got to make food for MREs, everything else.
Yeah, I just get surprised each time I see this list on the DD 254 companies. That's your contractor form that you fill out to be a contractor. And you look at some of these companies and you wonder, what in the world could they be making? And now you start seeing some of these companies that are making things that are completely different than anything that they make. Like a cereal company making satellite dishes. You're like, wait, what? So it kind of gets weird like that.
A lot of iron in cereal.
Apparently so. Yeah. So you can mash out some oatmeal and turn it into something that's, whatever you need for the moment. Oh, man.
The technology, though, Mike, to see once again, and I mean, it just dawned on me before we started recording this episode, the plasma-based noise cancellation that I had posted this last week, because that, once again, is such a quiet, groundbreaking
and the devices
UFO
are simple.
UAP.
Yeah, we're not talking about something that's ultra high tech. It's high tech in what is done with it and how it's performed, but the actual device itself, when you hold it in your hand and you look at it, you're like, wow, this is
as low tech as possible. It is a wire mesh with a positive and negative electrode.
That's pretty much it.
Well, if you look behind the wire mesh, because the negative is attached to the wire mesh, which is, of course, proper, because in any Faraday cage, you want to connect your mesh to the ground. Yeah. But if you look inside, because they've got basically, it looks like the patent in real life, because they've got the cutaway view. They've cut away part of the screen so that you can see.
It looks like guitar strings in there.
The electrode wires that are creating the positive plasmic field, the same way that you would if you were creating a small plasma field for, let's say, a ion thruster.
Mm-hmm.
Very low voltage, very low impact on a circuit or power consumption.
Yeah, but over time, they can use like an ion engine. People hear about it having the thrust of maybe 0.01 newtons or something like that. But it's constantly on, and it doesn't require hardly any fuel, like maybe xenon or something like that.
Well, when that lift capacity changes, the larger the ion thruster is.
Or multiples thereof, and you can put many on there. But the thing is, it's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week of constant thrust, and over time, you can imagine how fast that object is. The fastest object that we have right now is using an ion thruster.
That's right. And to consider that you're using the exact same existing technology that you're using to power that craft, to propel that craft.
Yeah,
to make that craft silent, or to make that craft invisible. Because once again, the thing that I tout all the time, even with my music, take a look at that electromagnetic frequency. What we see and hear is this small, tiny little slice right in the middle. That's what we see and hear. There's all of this. But if you note that what we see and hear, there's no difference, Mike.
Yeah, it's
when we listen,
we operate in that our sensors on our body, so to speak, can sense.
Yeah,
but now we're getting out into the realms that are far exceeding, you're talking about gamma and X-ray and infrared. Infrared is a simple one that we all can relate to because we all see it every day in security cameras and stuff like that. And we also see it in the military. But when you start getting into these other ranges of frequencies that just get beyond the scope of what the average person is going to be able to comprehend as far as what you can do with that. Like obviously X-rays is something that we also can deal with because we've all had X-rays taken of us. But, keep in mind that when you're looking at that on the battlefield, and you're looking through your enemy defenses and you can see what's going on, at a level that's so far superior to anything that we could even probably imagine right now.
Yeah.
But then, that's the technologies that are out there. I mean, something as simple as having your Wi-Fi on at your home. The police now have a device that they can be outside your home, map your Wi-Fi, and then once they map your Wi-Fi, they can track anyone moving inside the house.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's existing technology. That's just some guy who just figured it out one day and said, hey, this Wi-Fi is constantly sending this signal that's bouncing around off these walls in a house, and we can measure that. And if something moves through that, we can measure that too. Yeah. We can tell you exactly where someone, like if you've got a shooter that's inside of a home and it's taking someone hostage and you need to see inside the home, you can do it with Wi-Fi, believe it or not, which is kind of. Oh,
absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's a one-way radar.
Yeah.
All you have to do is be able to receive that, no different than, bouncing a laser beam off a window and hearing the conversation because of the vibrations on it.
Right.
And reading that like a CD.
Yeah, and those you can make a laser microphone right now, and they're super
under $100 now. You can make a laser microphone. It's pretty remarkable, and that's just it. The technologies. I mean, I could go on Amazon right now, Mike, and for $30 buy an ultrasonic levitation kit. It's about this big, and I could probably take like a plastic airsoft BB and throw it in there and levitate it in between, or a couple of drops of water and levitate it in between the ultrasonic.
You can do that with existing speakers, and that's just a device that's made specifically for that. But we used to take cornstarch and stuff and put it on a speaker with, we take some plastic, put it on there first, and then make those dancing.
Sure.
It's always fun.
Yeah. You can do cymatics and everything else, but to actively use ultrasound to suspend something in midair is pretty phenomenal. And what we've come to find out that, once you get into the world of vibration, which according to all physics, Mike, like we say all the time on this show, it's all vibration. We're sharing a vibrational electron shell right now between Texas and Florida.
And what's weird is 10 years ago, if you said that, some people would think that you're on some weird frequency of love spectrum thing. You're looking for that 528 hertz, and you're trying to play music that gets the woman in the mood or whatever.
Yeah.
And here we are today talking about it as making planes and aircraft and spacecraft and watercraft disappear. It's definitely gone on to the next generation here, so to speak.
Yeah, exactly.
I can't wait to see it. I can't wait to see what I can't see.
well, and I can't wait to see some of the really good developments with this, because the first thing that pops into my head, Mike, especially could silence rooms, cars, planes. I'm thinking about my targeted individual community, man.
Yeah.
Like, I want to try to make a device like this for targeted individuals so they can have like a safe space in their home.
Yeah, that would be awesome. A place where they can, live without fear of a bunch of stuff that's obviously,
Well, and like I had one text me. I'm sorry, I haven't gotten back to you, hon. I'll be getting back to you. But I had one text me, and I'd been talking with her about her son, develop some music for him, things like that to help out, and hadn't heard from them in a long, long time, and assumed that things had hopefully remitted and gotten a bit better. Apparently, he spent some time some places and things got a whole lot worse, Mike. and she sent me a diagram of a circuit from a place online. She's like, I'm thinking about getting one of these. And I mean, when I say diagram, Mike, I don't mean like they went into EagleCAD and like had a circuit design. I mean, it may as well have had the grains of like Mimi's diner napkin in the corner, you know.
She needs
it was just hand drawn on a piece of paper, and the first thing I saw was 3 ignition coils, and I was like, "Hun, I can't recommend anybody who is not trained in electronics and in high voltage electronics to have anything in their home that involves 3 ignition coils." Yeah,
they're going to...
unless it's your home oil heater. And that has 1 ignition coil in it, but this is 3 exposed ignition coils with an antenna on it. Like,
oh, wow. Geez, that's just what you're making a mini Tesla and zap yourself.
Somebody's going to get hurt somewhere. Your dog's going to run into it or something. I was like, good Lord. And just to think of the fact, Mike, that, and I'm not saying people are snake oil salesmen, anything like that. I'm not saying that device wouldn't work for blocking frequencies. Hey, man, you get a high enough electrical field going on in a room with a Tesla coil, you will block all incoming frequencies, Jack.
Yeah, there's enough frequency. Do that near a Starbucks or something and watch everybody drop their phones and their laptops and everything else all the time.
Yeah. I mean, you'll definitely block all RF coming in. The question is it good for you to be in that field? No. No, it's not good for you to be breathing that ionized air all the time. Believe me.
Just having that coil around him, especially when you mentioned she had a kid, right? So,
I mean, he's like a young adult, early 20s.
Yeah.
Who's having the issues, but hey, I don't care if I am well versed and trained, Mike. I don't even touch tails going like 3-phase tails going into the wall on a show site.
Yeah,
that's how wary I am of things. Like even my Tesla coil building has been micro size.
Yeah, I watch people pick up capacitors all the time. I'm like, hey.
You may want to grab a wooden handled device and pop that real quick.
Exactly. I've seen people zap by something they think is just the capacitor laying on the ground. They got to pick it up and zap. What the hell was that?
But that's just it. High frequency fields, and that's exactly what this is right here. This plasma based noise cancellation. Now, once again, in order to do this, you do not necessarily need high energy. You need high frequency. High frequency does not necessarily require high energy to attain.
Well, take that off to another level, and think about it this way. And this is something that I've kind of seen, so to speak. It'll be funny in a second. Is when you take those frequencies and you cancel something out. Like we all have it in our cars, like you're saying earlier.
Knight Rider had it. That's how Knight Rider had the silent mode, where he'd push the button and you'd hear nothing.
Exactly, and that's a play on this technology. Of course, they didn't have it back then, but now we have it where you can essentially match the frequency resonance of any object and make that object kind of disappear on the audio spectrum. But man, wouldn't it be neat if they could make it disappear on the video or the visual spectrum? And that might be something that we can look forward to.
I don't see why we couldn't, because once again, even if our eyes work in the same frequency field, the exact same frequency field. They're built to process the data in a different way.
Yeah, and we're dealing with waves, just like the gravity waves and stuff like that. And I think that was another thing you wanted to talk about.
Finally proven. Proven. And that, even whenever you're talking Alcubierre white warp drives, the work of John Sarfati, things like, or Jack Sarfati rather, the gravitational waves are hugely important.
Absolutely.
So the fact that they are rock solid proven now, Before they'd been theorized, things like that, we'd had hints of them, but it wasn't like, yo, check out all the gravity waves.
Yeah, when a few years ago, the LIGO instrument, when it picked up the gravitational waves from two colliding black holes, essentially they were picking that up on such a high frequency range that obviously it confirmed Einstein's theory that the gravitational waves would be created that would travel across the entire universe.
Yeah.
And now they're able to pick up the low frequency waves, which is what's happening now, which is where the two black holes that get near each other and they basically wobble in space. They're shaking that fabric of space-time around them, because space and time are obviously relative. And when every two objects are inside close proximity to each other and they're rotating around or whatever, they're wobbling, and there's some other resonances that are coming from that are going across the entire fabric of space.
And it's the entropic perturbation that we are hearing.
Yeah, and that's like the background, background cosmic radiation that has been around since the Big Bang. Now we have confirmation that we can hear, like literally hear black holes. And so now if we can hear them, we can detect them even better. And some it's very rare to find something in space that doesn't have a partner, where stars have planets or stars have other stars. We have a binary type system. It appears that the black holes, instead of gobbling up everything around them, if you have two black holes that are of similar mass near each other and they begin to go rotate around each other, then they are prime candidates for listening for this type of resonance to find them. At the center of every galaxy is a huge supermassive black hole, and that's what keeps everything kind of together. But it's also what pushes a lot of things apart. So we don't know. And we just launched just the other day the Euclid mission. And that Euclid mission is very, very interesting how that's going to show us that there's a lot of things as far as being able to measure dark matter and stuff like that. If X number of percent, a very high percentage, 85 or 95% of the universe is unknown to us, as far as we know how much the universe should have in matter, but we can't see it. So some of this matter that comes at us as dark matter is also going to produce, once we are able to find out what that is, and once we're able to tap into it, then we're also going to be able to tap into a new energy source that might be pretty neat, because if that explains why everything is moving away from each other. And everyone in the beginning thought the universe was static. It just always has been, always will be. And then there was a point of beginning that we came out with, and now we say, okay, that's the Big Bang. And we don't know if the universe is going to expand to a certain point and finally contract and go back upon itself. But that apparently is not possible, because the rate of the movement of all the objects in the universe is expanding. It's getting larger. So it's getting faster, and things moving away from us. I mean, there's galaxies that are right at that tipping point that once they go over it, we'll never see them again, but they're still there. So does that account for some of this? Don't know.
Well, and there is the whole theory of the coming blue shift, the great crunch, the one day the expansion, much like any rubber band. Yeah. You can expand it, but if you watch it in slow motion, it's an expansion that leads to a contraction, that leads to a smaller expansion, that leads to a smaller contraction. It moves back and forth till it comes to the point of stasis. And we as a universe are nowhere near a point of stasis.
Well, and then that's where you get into the law of entropy. You have a chaotic situation going on, and the theory that there's going to be a big crunch is becoming less and less. What appears to be is there'll be a dawn of time when the only thing that exists will be black holes, and black holes will be the only thing left. And then they will decay over time. There's a video out there. It's made by a 3D company that I can't remember the name of it. But it's like MB Balls or something like that. So it's a company that does a lot of graphics and stuff. And they'll do something that'll show like the age of the universe, and where we're at right now is we're still in the infancy, but you can imagine if it gets down to the point where the only thing that exists is black holes and their decay rate is so ridiculously slow, like our stars, basically going to be a white dwarf, and white dwarfs will be around for a long time because our stars are pretty cool. And some stars only live a few 100 million years, like giant, super giants and like Betelgeuse and stuff like that. Those are relatively young stars. Hopefully we'll get to see Betelgeuse explode in our lifetime. That would be cool.
I'm hoping, bud. I've got my telescope ready. Believe me.
All you got to do is Betelgeuse 3 times.
Well, it's right there. It's Orion's one of my favorite targets to photograph. Yeah. I love it. And I want to thank you on air, Mike, for my nighttime passion. Because sincerely, it has brought me a lot of solace. It has fed my brain and my heart and my soul. Given me new ways to flex my tech muscles that I already have working. And to see some of the photographers and videographers and directors of photography that I know that are like gobsmacked by some of the pictures that I take. I'm like, it's my buddy Mike, dude. He gave me the pointers. He gave me the route on how to. Once you told me how to capture Orion's nebula, it was over. Yeah. It was over.
Yeah. That was cool. And I'm so glad that you've done incredible on that. And seeing you put those pictures out just brings joy to me, just to see that someone else is enjoying something and someone that has as much enjoyment as I do. Because, when you go out with a star party or something like that, and you have some friends come along, you're going to have people, that's boring. Yeah, but you got to wait like 10 minutes and then the image actually comes out where you can clearly see it.
Well,
and they're like, and then they see it. Like,
even whenever I'm taking a 1 minute exposure on my camera, I have to wait another minute. Before I see it for like 3 seconds, and then it goes away. And then I make my adjustment. Then I take another 1 minute shot. Then I have to wait another minute.
Once you get that art of stacking the images and bring them into like Photoshop and doing layers and lining them up is the pain. But oh my God, the colors that come out of there is just amazing. There's a couple of astronomy filters I'll tell you about, but we're getting off topic. So
we are and we aren't. The thing is, it's technology, Mike, and the technology that is out there, AI wise that can be leveraged now. The technology that is out there optically that can be leveraged now. The technology, I mean, even right now, I just popped up the New York Times article, new room temperature semiconductor offers tantalizing possibilities.
There you
go. Something that I remember when
the Holy Grail.
Semiconductors were like fairly groundbreaking the way that they were being used. We were talking about maglev trains and things like that, and monorails when I was a kid back in the late 70s, early 80s. And the idea of a room temperature semiconductor.
A room temperature semiconductor. Didn't Salvador Payas, or Payas, whatever how it's pronounced, didn't he have part of that was one of his patents, I think, that he had?
Yep.
Yeah, he sure was.
Exactly, and exactly why I'm bringing it up, Mike.
A whole new level of possibility of things to create, and also moving things around. I mean, when you go to China and you go to Shanghai and you leave the Pudong airport, and you go from Pudong down to downtown Shanghai in 8 minutes on a train that's moving 300 kilometers per hour. Yeah. I mean, that's having.
Well, even right now, the X-59.
Yeah.
That's out of the war zone too. A frontal view of the X-59 reveals details of its pilot vision system provided in lieu of many forward-facing windows for its pilot. And that's a solid front.
They're facing the same issue that like Concorde had. Its pilot's going to be on that, but that's essentially a wave rider. I mean, it's a low boom, so then it's going to be approved for flight over the U.S. There's not going to be any sonic booms from this, or they'll be so minimal it sound like somebody closing a car door from across the street. I think is the analogy they use. But that's going to be interesting. I mean, flying from New York to Los Angeles in an hour, no big deal.
Yeah, and I mean that is a beautiful, beautiful airplane. That is just gorgeous.
It is.
And when you look at it, you can see a lot of different elements, especially if you look at the original versions of hypersonic missiles that came out. You know, like the nose cone on it, definitely harkens back to that. All sorts of things. You can see, of course, the ramjet on the back to bring air in. Everything else. It's remarkable to know that. When I was a kid, Mike, I had a model of Aurora.
Yeah.
The SR-72 looking craft with the bent swept wings, things like that. That was supposedly the first hypersonic flying plane. And it's always been said, like, that is a pipe dream. Hypersonic flight is a pipe dream. We have crazy supersonic things like that, but hypersonic flight is a pipe dream. And now we're looking at it being used on the battlefield with great effectiveness and regularity, with such regularity that we now have intercept system, or at least a few intercepts that have by chance happened through conventional means, like the Patriot system landed a hit, which is incredible.
Well, the Saab had a plane that actually was, if it just had more time and more warning, that it could actually do an intercept on that. It was the only plane that in existence. I can't remember the number of the Saab, but that was the aircraft that they accredited as being the only airplane that could possibly intercept an SR-71. But you know, hypersonic is going to be obviously the future. That more technology has to go into some of the materials and composites that are going to be utilized on the skin of the craft to help that. Because the SR-71, keep in mind, that plane was made out of titanium that we actually sourced from Russia, which is kind of funny. But that plane leaked fuel like crazy. So at Beale Air Force Base,
until it heated up and hit speed and temperature, and the panels grew together by that 16th of an inch or whatever it was.
The whole plane
it was like a sieve.
Yeah, the entire aircraft grew 6 inches in flight. So it would grow, and then, like you said, it would seal those seams, and it wouldn't be leaking anymore. But to see it sitting on the ground, your first thought, because no one told me to think leaks like crazy, and as I'm looking at it, I'm like, is this normal? Is this thing gonna blow up? And what's going? And they have this APU that's next to it that they use to start it. And the APU is an old car engine, is actually what it is. And, like a big Buick or something. I don't remember what the engine is. But then when they ignite it, the ignition comes out in green. It's like a really fine hue of this green glow that comes out. And then you're thinking, okay, well, nothing's going to blow up. And they're like, well, think of it like kerosene or diesel fuel. You can throw a cigarette or a match in that stuff and it won't light up. And it's like, okay, all right, I feel better now. But that was a very, humbling thing to be able to see that. I lucked out because it was not even supposed to be there, so that was pretty cool. Yeah. But we're looking at the future technologies that we, it's so funny is as we talk about future technologies, we go back to planes and we talk about planes that were built in the 50s and 60s, and keep in mind that those technologies weren't shown to the public for many years. How they got the F-117A kept a secret for so long. I mean, of course, there's sightings on it, stuff like this. But the new technologies that are coming out are so far superior to what we've seen in the past that it's almost unbelievable as to what some of this stuff can do. And you got planes that are flying around with this silver coating on them now. And you and I talked about this a long time ago. I think I even mentioned on your show and on Breslow's show that they would have active technology on the plane that would actually show the sky below it. The bottom part. So you could, even if you're staring right at it, you wouldn't even know it. You would just see like a shimmer, kind of like, I think me and you talked about, it looked like kind of like Predator, moving around. And unless you knew what to look
optical
for, you
camouflage.
Exactly. And so you've got that, and that's in existence right now. I mean, it's being utilized right now. So Yeah.
Well, and precisely, Mike, precisely. And to know that is out there, to know that planes like this new hypersonic plane is coming out. It's a wild world of technology that we live in nowadays. Yep, and it's all readily available, and to see that they are focusing on spectral warfare, RF spectrum, electronic warfare, infrared masking in their new planes, and the plasma-based noise cancellation can be used. There's so much of this technology that feeds into the world of UFOs, UAPs, paranormal.
Absolutely. You have to wonder if some of this stuff that's being reported is a utilization of some of this technology in roundabout ways.
Yeah.
Yeah. And very well could be. I mean, I don't have any, other than the things I've already reported on, any direct evidence of it, but I would not doubt that some of the technology that's being utilized could be a manifestation of some of these things that people are reporting seeing.
Absolutely.
It could be some byproducts of, if you send that speaking plasma ball into the air, when you're done with it, is there some residual effect that you're not aware of that may occur elsewhere even?
Yeah.
Maybe spoopy things at a distance. I mean, who knows? All kinds of weird stuff happens.
Absolutely, Mike. I want to thank you so much, as always, for coming on, going over just the new technology that's out there, how it relates to the field of UFO, UAP study, how to kind of see these things in a broader scope. Because once again, I mean, that was a cursory article that if I didn't follow the publisher, I would have never seen it. It's not anywhere else.
Yeah, it's not. Agreed. It hasn't taken hold into the mainstream. Some of this stuff is just too bizarre for mainstream, I guess.
But when you were talking, I saw a huge silent craft. That's exactly the technology that would be doing it. That's exactly the technology that takes less than the same amount of power it takes to start your car to make happen.
Jack Sarfati said he could power a Tic Tac with a 9-volt battery. So.
That's right. Mike, once again, thanks as always for coming on. Where can people go to keep up with the work of 5x5 News? Where can they go to keep up with the latest from you? I know that I don't know if you're a threader yet. I don't know if you're a sewer. What are we going to call it? Is it the sewing circle? What's threads? I haven't gotten into the thread yet.
What's funny is about threads, that's an old school name. I mean, that's what we used to call everything back in the day.
Yeah, that's what it was a thread. Yeah. Back in the days of bulletin board systems and things like that.
Exactly.
But
how we forget.
Of course, you're on Twitter, everything else. Where can people go to keep up with 5x5 News and everything that you're doing out there, bud?
Between Twitter and YouTube, you're going to get a good overall swath of what I'm doing. And, so YouTube is going to be my go-to on something that's more video-based. But if something's more conversational-based, I'll probably do that over at Twitter. Getting a lot of arguments on Twitter, which is a lot of fun. So people from both sides, I mean, I bring up I try to remain as unbiased as possible, but sometimes I have to pick a side, so to speak. And
you're argumentative?
I've been known to be. Like Go Fast is a prime example. I've been arguing Go Fast since day one, and to be finally vindicated on that one, I know. Eric Davis owes me a huge apology.
Yeah, but and it's still being used in the same way, despite a NASA panel that literally decoded it live on television, live on video feed.
Right.
Wasn't on television. Well, it was on NASA TV.
NASA.
But yeah. Same, Mike.
But those are the two places to check out. And if you watch today, you can, or today being Friday, so we're going to broadcast this on Tuesday. But even Carol Baskin on her channel, on her diaries, she finally talked about me today. I was like, here we go.
I haven't watched that one yet.
Yeah, you have to see it. She just released it at midnight last night, and then she starts off, Mike Turber did it. I'm like, oh my God, here we go.
Here we go. Hold on. Before we let you go, let's play that clip. Oh, hold on. There's a horrible commercial that I'm not going to give credence to on air, but I will let play partially so that somebody gets their grip, Mike.
There you
go. I'll give Carol her money. Here you go, Carol. Oh, hold on. Here we go. Let me unmute the tab.
About a cadaver dog being coaxed to bark at a lake.
And hit your back button on that. Yeah.
Mike Turber Investigations. Mike has been saying he wants to tell my side of things since he was used in the Discovery ID episodes about a cadaver dog being coaxed to bark at a lake as proof that Don is a meat grinder at the bottom of the lake. I sent him some background info so that he's not chasing leads that really go nowhere. Awesome. So here are a few of the emails.
It's long. And I have to say this. Once I started doing that investigation, there's two people, myself and a girl. I'll just give her initials as MJ. And we had unprecedented access to Howard and Carol as far as the information that we were able to obtain. I mean, I had her passport, I had Don's passports, I had all this. Oh, wow. All this information. Yeah, I had all that.
I remember you had all kinds of really deep, thick stuff.
Yeah, and I didn't exploit it. I didn't go out and just broadcast everything that I had. I mean, that would be the cheap way of going in and doing something. But the main thing was to get to the bottom of that case is to the disappearance of Don Lewis and stuff like this. It required that level of access. And I could not believe that no one else had done that at all. Yeah. So I was it. I was the only investigator that they would talk to at the level that I was being talked to. And I have to admit that they were incredibly forward and I could come to their house and we walked the grounds over at Big Cat Rescue. I've been to where the septic tank is, the whole 9 years. Yeah. And they were very, they would come forward with any information I asked for. There was nothing that was off limits, and I truly appreciated that.
Wow.
It was kind of interesting. So I'll sum that story up sometime down the road so everybody can get a bite out of that. And, if you're interested in Tiger King, I mean, that's way off the beaten path of what we normally talk about.
We should do one though, because there's new stuff. There's all kinds of crazy things. He of course did not get his pardon, everything else that he was looking for, but the case is ongoing, and it's pretty remarkable the things that have come about, Mike.
Exactly.
So yeah, let's have a Tiger King episode coming up soon.
Yeah, we can do that. Yeah. Maybe a couple weeks or so, and then that way I can absorb whatever I don't know what she's going to say in her diaries. So I'm sitting back and just kind of watching myself. So
you're in Carol Baskin's diary.
We'll see. But I appreciate you having me on as usual. I had a great time.
Absolutely, Okay, man. Hold the line while we close things out for this segment. Of course, while you are online checking out all the amazing work of 5x5 News and our good friend Mike Turber, make sure to stop on by Curious Realm. That's where you can see the document I have on screen right now. F-18 laser pod countermeasures, the actual document of the patent. Stop on by curiousrealm.com/knowledge for our knowledge vault. Stop on by Curious Realm /store for the store. Curious Realm /story to share your story if you are somebody who has had a paranormal experience. If you have had encounter with a cryptid, UFO, UAP, if you're a targeted individual. Get in touch with us. We will share your story with our professionals and try to get you some answers. Stay through this break, folks. We will be joined right after these commercials with Rob Gutro, medium, talking about ghosts and spirits, insights from a medium, the world of pet mediumship. Do spirits from pets carry on into the afterlife? What is the afterlife? Is it what we really think? And how do people go about contacting spirits? We will get into that and so much more with Rob Gutro right after this. With the rise in attention to the health benefits of cannabis and cannabinoids, including CBD, True Hemp Science has become one of the premier providers of full-spectrum CBD and CBD-related products. Using a proprietary spagyric process, True Hemp Science extracts maximum benefit from the whole hemp plant. Buds, leaves, stems, seeds, even roots. Every part of the plant is used and then reused to formulate a rich, complex profile of CBD, CBD derivatives, and terpenes guaranteed to provide the relief and benefits you need daily. Visit TrueHempScience.com to experience the best CBD oils, edibles, and topicals on the market today. And use code CURIOUS7 to save 7% off your entire purchase of $50 or more and get 2 25-milligram CBD cookies or brownies free. That website again is TrueHempScience.com and the code is CURIOUS7. Have you considered starting a podcast? Looking for a way to make your business a voice of authority in an industry? Then Podcast Cadet is the solution for you. Whether starting a podcast for yourself, your brand, business, school, church, or just plain fun, Podcast Cadet is here to help you navigate the waters of the podcast industry. Specializing in one-on-one consultation and training with industry professionals in fields ranging from podcast technology and editing to distribution, monetization, and even social media strategies. Podcast Cadet tailors their services to the specific needs of you and your podcast. Do you already have a podcast and trying to find ways to engage and grow your audience? Sign up for your Podcast Cadet audit today and let us help you explore new and exciting ways to leverage your content and elevate your podcast brand to whole new levels. From consultational workshops to affordable podcast production and maintenance packages, Podcast Cadet is your one-stop shop for everything podcast related on the internet. Visit podcastcadet.com today to sign up for your consultation or training and use code CURIOUS20 to save 20% off your entire purchase. That website again is podcastcadet.com. The Curious Realm Podcast is your source for the latest and greatest news and events in the world of the paranormal, esoteric, and forbidden knowledge. And there's no better way to spark the conversation than with items from the Curious Realm store. Choose from fan favorites like hoodies, mouse pads, coffee mugs, and more. Buy books and items from your favorite Curious Realm guests. Get your hands on the latest gear for paranormal investigations and experiments we discuss on the show. Open your web browser and stop on by the Curious Realm store at curiousrealm.com/store to buy the latest Curious Realm wear and out-of-this-world gifts for yourself, your family, or a mind that you want to open. That website again is curiousrealm.com/store. Hello, everybody, and welcome back from that commercial break. Thank you so much to all of our sponsors, especially WebWorks Wireless. WebWorks Wireless is out there providing you connection to the internet anywhere that you are, folks. Anywhere that there is cell phone signal, they provide a connection. WebWorks Wireless is our connection for our website live feeds whenever we are out on location. They are who provides our website live feeds to our website every single week when we are live on the air. We have never had a dropout, never had an issue, and typically have better connection than I do on many paid services in hotels and things. So stop on by and check them out if you are looking for internet connections for your RV, your camping trailer, live shows like mine. Stop on by and check them out, folks. Webworkswireless.com. They are your home for high-speed internet for all. No data caps, no throttling, no credit checks. Stop on by and check them out, folks. Our guest in this segment is Rob Gutro. Rob Gutro is an author. He is a medium, specifically a medium in the world of pets. We're going to talk about mediumship, exactly what that is, what it is to be a pet medium, and exactly how that impacts people and their lives. Welcome to the show, Rob. How are you doing today?
Hi, Chris. Doing great. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. I actually have one of your books right here in front of me that I've been thumbing my way through the last few days. It is Ghosts and Spirits, Insights from a Medium. Your books are actually available right there on our Curious Realm store where we put all of our guest books. So you can go by, check all that out, folks. You can go by his website and get all the books as well. Rob, tell us a little bit about how you first came to find your gift. How did you first come to find out that you were gifted in the world of mediumship to begin with, much less gifted in the world of animal mediumship?
Well, they happened in 2 separate years, and the first one was quite a fright. Actually, I was a teenager. I was about 13 years old, and my grandfather, who died in December, appeared to me in July in full color when I was home with the family dog, and scared the daylights out of me. So that was my introduction.
Wow.
When my parents came home, I told them about it because I had a great relationship with my mom and dad. And my mother then confessed that it runs in her family. And she never told me.
Interesting.
Yeah, so she was afraid to use it. And then I buried that ability until 2005, when I had a puppy named Buzz, who was on the cover of that Pets in the Afterlife 1 book right there, the one with the glowing Weimar on her. Buzz was tragically killed by a car, and he was only 7 months old, and he really reawakened things and blew the doors off my abilities. So he taught me really how pets communicate from the other side.
And I guess what was it? Because, like you said, your grandfather, correct, was the spirit that appeared before you, like you said, live and in Technicolor, so yes, to speak. And that is a phenomenal experience to begin with, especially for, of somebody of any age. What was were you scared when that happened? What was your first gut reaction to that situation, Rob?
I was horrified. I didn't know what was happening, and what was strange about it, Chris, is that he appeared to me 2 rooms away. I remember sitting at our kitchen table as a teenager. I was writing and drawing my own comic books, as I used to do.
Cool.
And 2 rooms away, in a darkened room, our living room, lights started to come together, and sure enough, within a minute, he was there in full color. So I grabbed that dog and I ran outside, and I sat outside until my parents came home.
Now, how I want to ask a couple questions here related to that situation. Number one, was your grandfather close with the dog?
No.
Okay.
My grandfather wasn't even close to me, to be honest with you.
Okay, because
we never had a real close relationship.
My follow-up question for that was, do you think that the dog was acting as a channel for that mediumship? So it was just curious to me that your dog happened to be there when that happened, and that you have a very strong connection with animals. Like you said, your connection with animals did not come to bear until years later, correct?
Yeah, it was about 40 years later.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, 35 years later. Yeah, a long time.
Why so long, Rob? Did you, I guess, did you ignore your gift during that time? Did you use it as a parlor trick? Did you kind of shun it away like your mom did? Tell us a little bit of that story.
Yeah, well, I just got caught up in life.
Okay.
I just got distracted. I went to college. Actually, I went to college 3 times. I have 3 different degrees in radio and TV, English and business, and meteorology.
Awesome.
I call it my 3rd degree burn. But I was so set on getting my education and my career together that I didn't really pay attention to other things. And that's why.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And that's understandable. I mean, the reason I ask is because I myself had a great, amazing conduit connection with Divine, and it was fantastic. And much like you, a few personal choices in my life kind of dulled that connection. But even then, life and the hubbub and everything else since has kind of stymied my getting back to some of that connection. And it's interesting how simple life can not necessarily dull those skills, but kind of back burner them a little bit.
Yeah, it really does. And in terms of mediumship, once I found out that I had this gift, I started writing everything down, and then that became the basis really for my first book. And then my dad passed away in 2008, and he helped me prove to my own mother and my brothers that he was at his own wake and his own funeral with a handkerchief. So what I wanted to do was I wanted to share what I learned about the afterlife, even though I was just starting out really, with everybody, because it acts as a comfort, and that's why I started writing.
Well, and that in our preface conversation before we hit record here, that was part of what I was saying, that I think before we get into mediumship, we really do have to tackle that concept of afterlife to begin with. And this is how I kind of explain it to people, sans religious background, Rob. We are all energy. Energy cannot be created or destroyed. It can only change form and transmogrify. Yes. That's it. So whatever our energy, intellectually, spiritually, whatever you want to say it is, it doesn't go away when our corporeal form ceases and stops functioning. That spark of energy continues. That is how I explain it to people. Now, you as a medium, how do you explain that to people? Because like you said, typically it's their experience that will make them the believer. Once they've had an experience with you, how do you begin that conversation with a non-believer, Rob?
I couldn't have said it any better, really. So that's actually what I tell them. It's the law of conservation of energy. And
sure.
And I also tell them that because I'm a scientist, science weighs heavy on my explanations, if you will.
Absolutely.
So in my experience, I explain the afterlife as what happens after the body dies is that energy that's coupled that's within us, like thoughts, are little electrical impulses that scientists can measure in your brain. We have cell splitting all the time. We have blood pumping and so forth. So that energy couples with our memories, our personality, and the knowledge of this life. And then we make a choice. And the choice that I have found is that we choose to stay earthbound in a place that we are familiar with or where we died. Or we cross over into the light on the other side, and I call that a spirit. The earthbound ones I call a ghost. And that's why my first book was called Ghosts and Spirits Explained. So to me, there's a similarity, but the difference is in location. And And ghosts, I have found, once a ghost chooses a place to stay, they're stuck there until a medium can help them cross over.
Yeah. And once again, I guess one question I have that I've asked quite a few mediums, that I've asked quite a few paranormal investigators is it necessarily the choice of the ghost, Rob? Because I guess sometimes, yes, a ghost, especially I'm sure it's the case with animals, that it's very much a protector spirit mentality, and that idea, as opposed to true idea of connection and loss, as in a human being, where it's like somebody is fully mourning that loss. Is it the fact of the person left behind here in life is keeping the ghost here instead of allowing them to become a spirit?
Some people think that that's what happens with their pets, but actually I've found that our pets make that decision to cross over 99% of the time because they are very sensitive to emotion. So the light on the other side, if you will, is nothing but love and peace and acceptance. So animals will gravitate toward that. Plus, the spirits of our loved ones are on the other side, welcoming our animals. So that's another draw for them to cross over. So, but in terms of people, I have found that most of them make a conscious choice to stay here. The exceptions are like people who die in hospitals or battlefields, or those who are murdered or die in automobile accidents.
Sure.
And they linger because they're confused when they awaken, as you will, as an entity with a consciousness. They don't know what happened. And I've also found that there's some period of time, and we don't know what it is, in which they linger too long and then they get stuck, if you will.
Sure. Totally lose their way or connection to the light.
Yes. Yep.
And how often does that happen with pets, where they make the decision to stay and possibly have even lost the connection?
So in all the years I've been doing this, I've only encountered 3 ghost cats and 1 ghost dog. And the dog stayed behind because the pet parent was still alive at the time, and they wanted to stay behind with the pet parent. When the pet parent crossed over, that dog still stayed behind because the dog loved to greet people who came into the house. Now, I'm actually referring to a dog that was owned by Sir John Soane, who was a famous British architect in the 1800s. And I visited his home, which is now a museum. And as soon as I walked in, his little dog, Fanny, was there to greet me.
Wow.
And still greeting people as they walk into the museum, even though most of them don't know it. But it's been confirmed by the docents and all the people that work there I spoke to afterward, and they said, yeah, there's a dog, a ghost dog that's in here. Wow,
that's remarkable. And once again, like you say, the choice of the spirit to stay, or I guess the choice of the ghost to stay and remain.
Mm-hmm.
And that brings up an interesting concept, because once again, how do we, the average person who is not a medium, Rob, and I've had a couple of experiences where I believe that my mother's cat was batting at me in my sleep. Things like that. I've had a couple of instances like that with what I would say would be, I don't know if they were ghosts. It was shortly after he was put down, sadly. And I've definitely caught feeling and presence of my previous cat. Cat was her name.
Okay. Appropriate.
Very appropriate name for a cat. I had rescued her, and she was the last of her litter. None of the others lived, so I did not want to give her a name that, would make me sad should things go not well. She ended up living for many, 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 many years and having a happy life and a litter of kittens. Amazing awesome. Things. But she is another one of those experiences where, like, I have fully felt her around me. How do we quantify that or explain that, Rob? What is the explanation behind something like that for a medium like yourself?
So my latest book is actually Pets in the Afterlife 4, Messages from Spirit Cats.
Oh.
So, and in that book, I explained the different ways that cats come back from spirit as a spirit and give messages to their pet parent. And some cats, for instance, like to do a few things. They like to walk on the end of the bed. They like to jump on a bed. They like to curl up against somebody when they're sleeping. So you may feel a slight pressure. You may feel a tingling. You may feel a coldness, and I can explain the coldness scientifically too. Other cats have told me they like to sit on the pillow of their pet parent and brush their hair with their paw.
Okay.
And they do that, so they do things in spirit that they used to do in life, just so you know who they are.
Interesting. And, the experience of my mother's cat specifically was one of those that, it was late at night. I was laying in bed, and on occasion, he'd come into my room and lay at the foot of my bed, and whenever I'd move funky or something, he'd get a little prissy about it and like pop, like get my foot under the thing, like, hey man, calm it down, and then just go back to laying down. He was just an old man cat, but that's exactly what I felt, was the distinctive pop on the end of my foot, and it was like, ooh, wow, okay. Yes. That was one of the first like visceral paranormal experiences I'd ever had. And that was the first time that I think, beyond the pure conservation of energy concept, Rob, that I said, yes, animals have a spirit that goes beyond.
Oh, absolutely.
Whether you want to call it a soul by the, according to Hoyle, religious definition of a soul, whatever that is, who knows, man? But do they hold opinion? Do they have emotion, feeling?
Oh gosh,
absolutely, yeah. Absolutely.
So, as a scientist, it's important for me to cite a couple of different things.
Please.
One is that in my Pets in the Afterlife series of books, and there are 4, I cite the science of learning. We have analyzed how pets learn, and I cite Dr. Stanley Coren, who wrote The Intelligence of Dogs and How Dogs Think, and he explains that pets learn on a number of different ways. They have instinctual learning, they have routine, they have emotional learning, they play well with others, or they don't play well with others. They, we do everything we do for a human child that we do for a pet. We take them to school. We train them how to go to the restroom.
Sure. We
train them to play well with others. They know dinner time. They know breakfast time. They know exercise time. We take them to the vet. And my favorite thing is that I tell people that the only difference is that our pets will not grow up and marry someone you don't like and move away.
Yeah. It's pretty rare that a pet just like pieces out on you, Now, granted, I had a cat that went wandering one day and just never came home. But that happens, but it's pretty rare that they're going to like shut the door on the way out. You know what I mean? They aren't going to emotionally abandon you.
Yes.
Like disappointingly human beings are prone to do, you know. And that's just it. Like, it could be understandable for me, a spirit staying by, even a human spirit, Rob, staying behind because of the grief of another person. Mm-hmm. You know, sure. Many is the case. I remember even the story of my grandfather's passing. I was not there. I was in 7th grade. We were in school, and the whole family was gathered around him at the hospital. They were praying, everything else, and doctor kept saying, like, he should be well gone by now. Is there anybody that he's waiting on? It's typically the only thing that I've seen. And they mention the grandkids. The only people that aren't here are the grandkids. They're at school. Sure. And shortly after they mentioned, it's okay, Daddy, we'll let them know. We'll let them know. They'll be okay. It was then that he left. And many is the case like that, where it seems like somebody is waiting for somebody to be there to depart. And that's why I believe that surely somebody's compounded grief from loss could keep a spirit from moving forward, like you said, by the spirit's own decision. And sadly enough, it could even cause a spirit to be away from that light long enough to lose the light.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know how long it takes, but
I'm sure it's an individual case. But that I guess that brings us into a topic that I want to broach, which is the grief concept, Rob. Those of us that are left behind, and how we deal with that, and even how we deal with the loss of a fur baby. You know, how do we deal with the loss of family pets? How do we mourn that loss? And what impact does our mourning have on their continuance?
Good questions. So what I found is that for the most part, our pets will cross over pretty rapidly because of our loved ones on the other side encouraging them, and also previous pets that were in our family that will be waiting for them in the light. And they're drawn to that love and that peace. But the reason, scientifically, the reason that we grieve so deeply for our pets is that, as I mentioned, we raise them like our children. And because their life expectancy is only between 10 and 15 years, really, they're obviously not going to outlive us as our children would. So it's perfectly normal to grieve deeply for the loss of a pet. In fact, I've spoken to many pet parents around the world who have grieved more deeply for the loss of their pet than the loss of humans that they're related to.
Sure.
And I get that. I mean, I've lost 4 dogs. I don't have any human children. And frankly, I've been devastated by their passing. And yes, I'm a medium, and I'm a pet medium, and I've received signs from all of them. And actually, every single dog that we've had appears in all of my Pets in the Afterlife books, with the exception of the cats book. But they... Yeah, they've all had their own amazing stories. Pets in the Afterlife 3, The Messages from Spirit Dogs, is a book that has 2 chapters about 2 dogs we lost in 2020, Dolly, our Weimaraner, and Franklin, our Dachshund. And they both came through with amazing confirmations that they were still around.
Now, the one question that I have is, we've set that definition between ghost and spirit.
Yes.
How does the average person, because the average person may experience the ghost. I think that it would take the much more sensitive person to experience the spirit. Because I think and correct me if I'm wrong, is it the case that the spirit has more intent when trying to connect with the living? Or is it that the living has more intent to connect with the spirit?
I think the living has more intent to connect to the spirit, because when we lose a loved one, the first thing we want to do is hear that they're okay on the other side.
Mm. Yeah.
And that's the message I get from all of the pet parents that contact me. They want to know if their dog or cat or horse or bird or whatever is okay. So in terms of earthbound ghosts, they usually have a couple of different reasons for contacting us that I've found. One is that they want help. Usually the most common EVP that we've gotten in the Inspired Ghost Tracking group is help me. Yeah. And they want help because they want to cross over, because they realize after being trapped for many years or whatever, that they don't belong here. Or if they're stubborn, if they want to maintain their personalities, so they can do, if they were a nice person in life, they'd be a nice person in death. If they were a jerk, they're going to be a jerk in death.
And it's interesting that you say that, because one would think that moving forward, shedding the mortal coil, becoming one with the energy of the universe, that you would shed the dick gene.
Yeah,
Rob, pardon the language, but you think
true.
that like the prick gene would get dropped at that point, but that's not the case. That's not the case. Like I used to do some work here and there with Lone Star Paranormal years and years ago. Okay. And there was a place, the Ale House. It no longer exists. It was bulldozed. It was one of the oldest houses in Houston or Galveston. It was the oldest house standing since the Galveston hurricane of like the 1800s. Yeah. But there was a sea captain that owned the house after, like even in death, he'd throw pennies at people and knock things off shelves and things like that. Like even in death, a raging prick.
Yeah.
Like tormented people, and not just like your average poltergeist stuff where it's like, the door opened by itself, like throwing things at people.
So that makes sense. I mean, so the thing is that when people cross over as a spirit, that's when they get kind of an awakening, and they realize that what they did was not right. But the earthbound ones, the earthbound ghosts, are the ones that still misbehave and act horrendous. And that's why if you ever go into a prison that is abandoned and haunted, you are going to be subject to some bad stuff. I mean, you may be pushed or hit or spoken down to or whatever.
Treated like any quote new fish in a prison.
Sure,
because that's what you are.
Exactly.
Hey, new fish. Yeah, like guess what? They're still a prisoner.
So I went to a prison once that had been shut down in Maryland, and it was a very uncomfortable feeling. The state had opened it up for residents if they wanted to tour it before they tore it down. And I went through it, and I said, that's it. I've been through one, never do it again. Just a bad feeling.
Yeah. And I've definitely been in those places where something is just off. You can't really place it, but there's just something odd. And one of the things, kind of along the same lines of asking, do we keep the spirit here? Like, is it possible? Because once again, is it possible for us relinquishing our control over somebody else's death? No matter how it happened, tragically, organically, through medical means, what have you. If our holding on to that can keep them held here, wouldn't it stand to reason even scientifically the fact that we could be imbuing a place with that, you know, and be bringing that vibration right along with us, kind of with the expectation, kind of the same way that scientists can mess up their experiment by full-on expectation of a result.
Well, I think that we can certainly influence them, but because everybody has free will, you know, they're still going to do what they want. Yeah. It's like a parent telling a teenager, I want you in by 12 o'clock, and they come in at 2, and they say, no, I'm not coming in at 12 o'clock.
Yeah. And
so it works the same way, I think, with grief.
How so?
That we can make people who have passed feel like we really need them to stay, but ultimately the decision is theirs. Yeah.
And, you know, once again, there could be other mitigating circumstances. A tragic death could confuse the spirit as to where they are, why they are.
Sure.
All kinds of things. Don't take it upon yourself, folks, that you are the reason that somebody hasn't passed to the light. Okay, that's not what I'm saying. However, can your energy help move them to the light, Rob?
Sure. So as a medium on a paranormal team, what we've done is we've been called into homes that have earthbound ghosts, and we have crossed them over. There was in my book, Case Files of Inspired Ghost Tracking, where I talk about different cases that we were on. We crossed many ghosts over. One was a burn victim. The chapter is called The Burned Ghost. She was a burn victim who died, who not died, but she was a tragic victim of an explosion in a car, and she was brought to a hospital in the burn unit, cared for by a nurse, and then ultimately she succumbed to her burns. She attached herself to that nurse because she thought the nurse could help her cross over. Ultimately, she stayed in the nurse's home, and we were called in, and we figured it out. And we helped her figure out who it was, and we helped her cross over. So they do want help crossing over for the most part once they see things change around them over time. People have asked me if ghosts can interact with each other.
Yeah.
I think that if they're from the same period of time, they can. Otherwise, they tend to ignore each other. It's like people in a crowd. You know, you don't necessarily pay attention to everybody who walk by.
Well, and it almost as though each spiritual impression is like an individual fingerprint, and that they don't commingle, so to speak. They are that individual. And I guess that was going to be one of my questions is it possible to, let's say someone like yourself, have a spirit guide that helps them with the spirits? Even a spirit animal, you know, like for instance, your dog from your childhood who helps you help the other dogs.
So I found that Buzz, my puppy that passed away, is a spirit guide for me.
Oh, wow.
He is one of several. And sometimes when people are very bonded to a certain pet, they become a spirit guide. So you can liken it to like a soulmate. So if there was one particular pet that you were closer to than other pets, it's very likely that pet is one of your spirit guides.
Interesting. And, that brings up a question that I had. Are you still there? Hello?
I'm here.
Okay. I thought I lost you there.
Yes, I'm here.
That brings up a question that I had, because in the room, I mean, we have a couple cats here in the house. But in my son's room, We have a frog. I'm a herpophile. I've kept lizards, frogs, snakes, all kinds of reptile and amphibian, hatched turtles, all kinds of things in my life. And I know that there are numerous people like myself who connect with a reptile or amphibian just as easily as with a dog or a cat. And I think that those relationships, people wonder why, like you were saying earlier, some people mourn more for the loss of their pet than they do the loss of a friend or a loved one. I think a lot of that comes down to trust and unconditional love issues, my friend.
Sure.
And the fact of human beings can always have some kind. A dog has zero agenda.
Yes.
A dog's only agenda is, what you up to, man?
and to love you. And to
love you. That's it. That's their agenda. Maybe there's a treat involved somewhere. Hey, bacon would be cool if you got some bacon. But that's not a necessity. And it's interesting because I akin what I do, providing AV technicians. In my industry, it's called herding cats. And I explain to people, no, it's not the herding cats that makes you tired. It's the fact that as opposed to a dog, where every dog is pretty well happy with a scratch on the head, not every cat's down with that, dude.
Right.
Every cat needs love in a different way. And it's love on their terms. It's not like a dog where it's, hey, what are you up to? Because I'd like to be in it. You know, it's a different attitude. It's still love. It's a different kind of love language. And I think it's the same thing with reptiles, amphibians, things like that. And people's draw to that is that you have alone time and emotional time with your pet that you do not have with a human being.
Yes.
You know? Yeah. And there is a healing bond there, and a beautiful bond that, I'm sorry, humans, there's a connection there that we just don't have. And it's interesting when you start digging into it, when you start really seeing that owner-pet bond that's there. And I've seen it in iguanas. I've seen it in snakes. Man, I've seen it in fish. Rob, my friend, used to have an Oscar fish like the size of a dinner plate. And it would hide and get mad with him if he was gone for a couple of days. It wouldn't eat. Like it had an attitude. It's like, this is a fish, man. Like, look at this thing. It is actively ticked at you that you were not here for 2 days.
Well, they bond with us like family, so it's totally understandable.
So, yeah, it's really interesting that you bring up this concept of some people mourn the loss of animals more. And I guess, does this same thing translate to, let's say, the reptile amphibian kingdom? Is it only higher order animals like mammalia? How does that spiritual connection work?
So every living thing has what I call a soul, and a soul is what I consider the energy.
Sure.
Plus memories, personality, and knowledge. So every living thing has a soul, so yes, it translates to everything.
Okay. Because, I mean, that would, of course, be a question that a lot of people would, I think, kind of the aha kind of action. But what about this? Well, I mean, no, same thing applies. And how do you go about, I guess, recognizing the presence of a spirit animal? How can somebody learn to start being open to that? Because once again, it's not necessarily that we reach out to them solely, correct? Spirits reach out to us as well.
Yeah, that's true. They do. And I found that even animals will recognize birthdays, anniversaries, and holidays because what they do is they read emotional energy of us. So when our emotional energy is elevated, they like to be around us. When our emotional energy is low, if we're depressed or if we're sad, they like to be around us to try and bring us out of it. If we're angry, they'll go in the other room.
Yeah, yeah.
But birthdays, anniversaries, and holidays hold true for people and pets in spirit. They will give us signs. And in the Pets in the Afterlife books, I have written all the different many ways that pets can give us signs, like those we talked about with the cats. They can appear as shadows. They can appear in your dreams. Dreams are the easiest way for any spirit to communicate, because our logical mind is asleep and they're able to get through. They can lead us to another pet that looks like them. You may hear them walking around at night. You may hear them snoring if they snore. So there's a whole variety of ways that pets will communicate with us. And I want to go back for just a moment about something you said about how pets really pay attention to us.
Sure.
In my Pets in the Afterlife 4 book, I wrote this. I did a reading for a cat named Buddy, and the mom just asked me what Buddy had to say. And one of the things that Buddy told me that was really weird was the word mala, M-A-L-A. And I didn't know what that meant. I never heard the word before. I knew mal meant dad in Spanish, but I never heard of mala. So I do all my readings by email. So I typed it in and I said, I have no idea what this word means. Maybe you do. Anyway, this is Buddy was really, he was really stuck on this word. So she wrote me back and she said, Rob, your reading was on point, but one thing that stuck out was the word mala. She said, there's only 2 living beings in the entire world that know that word with me and my cat, Buddy. She said, every morning I would invite Buddy into my room and I would do a meditation called the Mala meditation. And she said, nobody else in the world knows that except for Buddy. So Buddy conveyed that message to me, which was really amazing.
Wow. That's phenomenal. And yeah, once again, that emotional connection, that personal connection of, hey, this is the time that we spend together. Mm-hmm. Like prime example is my son saved a small cat in the backyard of our old house, and they have grown up together. Quite literally. They are right at the same age. And that cat follows him to bed every night, sits between he and whoever is reading a book to him. Like, same as a dog, no different. Curls up with him, goes under the blankets, and once he's asleep, we'll leave the room. And it's the most phenomenal thing I've seen. It's absolutely amazing to see this little cat's love for my son and how he straight up puppy dogs behind him. It's hilarious to watch, but there is an emotional connection between them that doesn't exist between him and me, doesn't exist between me and he and my wife. The cat is different with my son than everybody else.
Yeah, that's beautiful. What a beautiful gift that is.
Indeed. How can people, I guess, learn to start seeing this in their life, Rob? How can they start to look for signs like we were saying, not just dreams, things like that, but how can they, I guess, start to change their life with this information?
Well, they have to develop an open mind. Of course, it's very easy to be skeptical. I totally get it. I've talked to a lot of skeptics over time, but once it affects you, it's different. So in the Pets in the Afterlife series of books, I teach people all the different ways that pets will communicate or can communicate. The most important thing to know is that whatever they did in life, they will do in death from the other side to let you know that they're around. And the best way, I guess, to understand that is to pick up one of my books and read and learn. And by learning, you'll be able to pay more attention. It's amazing what pets can do. One of the things that I also learned from pets is that pets in spirit, if you adopt another pet, pets in spirit will come visit, and they will appear to your new pet, and they will train your new pet to do a habit or two that they had in life. Often people have said to me, well, I think my dog is reincarnated, and that's not the case. Your dog in spirit is training your new dog to do something that they used to do, and your dog in spirit will be waiting on the other side for you and your other dog.
Now, I'm gonna throw something out there, Rob, because I was gonna ask you if you could medium via distance with living pets. Because since we moved to this house, and this is just a year, the little baby cat with my son, little Floyd, like he's used the litter box his whole life. But when we moved here, there is one room that he will continuously use the bathroom in. Nowhere else in the house.
Uh-oh.
And it's not like he doesn't know where the litter box is. And we know that the last people had a problem with pets, things like that. They replaced carpet, all kinds of things. But it's one of those, like, I wonder if their pet spirit is teaching our cat to use the bathroom. Hey, you know, I know you're used to using that box, but you should really try this carpet, guy. Like, it is soft.
That is a very interesting possibility. Yeah.
Because is it the fact of, like, hey, you know, if your dog had, like, that bad habit of chewing a shoe every now and then whenever it was mad, like, is that something that it can pass on to new family pets to be like, hey, you know, well, you know, I know he can be kind of a prick sometimes when he and the lady need alone time, but let me tell you what I used to do, my friend. It'll really get his attention.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be a good habit.
Yeah, that's interesting because, once again, just to loop it back to the beginning of the conversation, it's not like just because they left that they're any less mischievous of a person that they were, or any less of an attitude-ridden person.
Exactly.
Now, that leads me to a question real quick, Robin, and we've got you for a few more minutes.
Okay.
One of the things that I'm always prone to ask any medium when it comes to spirits and the living, what about bad interactions? What do people have to look out for? Are there cases of, I guess not necessarily hellhound, but, you know, even abused animals that have passed that are still in a home, you know, that can lash out the same way that a poltergeist would and harm people, anything like that.
So all of our, we have 3 dogs, and they're all rescues, and all of them were sadly abused before they came to us. So, but what happens with an animal is that they move past the abuse and they focus on the love that they did receive. So they're not like humans in terms of revenge. They will never come back to harm somebody like people do. I was on a paranormal investigation, by the way, and the manager played a sound clip after the investigation that said, and the ghost said, "Kill Rob." So,
whoa.
Yeah, it was frightening, but you won't find a pet doing that.
Wow. Hashtag direct threat.
Yeah. That's why
wow.
She told me after I left the building. Yeah.
That's great.
Well, he was a jerk in life, and he was a jerk in death.
Well, and yeah, you know, once again, kind of loops us right back to that point. It was just a curiosity of mine of, you know, can people run afoul of the territory of a an attack dog, things like that. And like you said, apparently any of that training, anything like that they would have gone through in life would be, they are nowhere the baggage carriers that we are, so to speak.
Yeah.
Paranormally.
And when they transition into spirit, they realize, that humans had done them wrong, and they, they don't, they're good on the other side. So, and for those people who adopt dogs and cats that were abused, those dogs and cats will not go to the people who abused them once they cross over. They will go to the people that love them.
Not even to, get back a little bit? Nope. Wow.
Nope.
Highly enlightened.
Yeah, it's all about love.
Well, and that would, of course, I can hear people around the conversation right now saying, the first thing I'd do is go right back to the dude that was beating me.
Sure,
handle up on that real quick. So
your cat's going to go right back to that carpet and pee on it.
I know, right? He's the most amazing animal in the world. He's great. He's absolutely awesome. And it's like this one habit. When did you pick this up? Like randomly out of nowhere. It's hilarious.
He's been trained.
He's been spiritually trained by the other cat.
That's right.
Well, Rob, I want to thank you so much for your time this evening, your candid conversation about not only your gift, but what people can do to welcome this concept into their life, to really try to connect with the spirits of their lost pets, because we tend to kind of blank that out. We don't tend to talk about them the way that we do family members, things like that, and they are family members, folks. They deserve no less respect,
Yeah, and most of us would rather see our pets on the other side than our relatives on the other side.
Yeah. Good Lord, especially if the politics is going to keep getting talked.
Absolutely, yeah.
Rob, thank you once again for your time. Before we let you go, I know you actually let's spend a few minutes talking about the amazing mission that you have going out and speaking at animal shelters, things like that. When you told me about this is a fantastic mission that you have. Tell everybody about it and how they can get you to come out to an animal shelter near them.
Sure. Thank you. So about 5 years ago, I came up with this idea because there's so many pet parents grieving all over the world, actually. And I've heard from so many countries, it's been crazy. But because I work with animal rescues, I came up with the idea to go to animal rescues and give a lecture and teach people how pets communicate from the afterlife, to bring them comfort and to teach them what signs to look for. So whenever I go to an animal rescue, the animal rescue will charge a certain amount to get in, a small fee, and I don't take anything. It all goes to the animal rescue. So awesome. That way we're supporting the dogs and cats.
That is incredible because, I live here in Austin, no kill city.
Mm-hmm.
I am highly supportive of that. It is important, folks. You can adopt just as easy as you can buy from a breeder, and believe it or not, you can end up with a much, much better pet as well. Because the love that comes from an adopted animal is like no other. The love that comes from a saved animal is like no other. Mm-hmm. It is a true love of appreciation. Rob, thank you so much. I am appreciative of your time. Let everybody know where they can go to keep up with you, where they can go to subscribe to your blog, where they can go to find you on other podcasts, buy your books, the whole bit, my friend.
Well, thank you. They can just go to robgutro.com, and if you can't spell my last name, it's you can go to petspirits.com, and it all goes to the same place. And you'll find links to Facebook and Instagram and my blog that I write every single week about some topic, whether ghost, spirit, pet, or person. I have 3 series of books: Pets in the Afterlife, Ghosts on a Medium's Vacation, which I love to talk about, and Ghosts and Spirits. So They're all there. All of my books, I'm self-published. All of my books are under $10 because I want people to read them and learn. I'm not in this to make a profit. I'm a meteorologist. I'm a scientist. So I have a job.
Wow.
But I do this to help people, and that's my mission.
Absolutely. That is so incredible, and I am all about it, Rob. We need to have you on to talk about meteorology and anomaly in that at some point, because there is a wild, vast array of things involved with that. I'm a backyard astronomer, and some of the things out there are just wild. Thank you once again for your time. Thank you once again for the amazing book, Ghosts and Spirits. That is what I have been reading here over the last week. And hold the line real quick while we close things out with our pre-recorded audience, Rob. Thank you again.
Thank you.
All right. While you are online checking out all the amazing work of Rob Gutro over at robgutro.com, make sure to stop on by curiousrealm.com. That's where you can find the store with not only Rob's books, but all the books from our guests. That's where you can find all the Curious Realm merch. That's where you can find ghost hunting tools, paranormal tools, all kinds of things, meters galore for all of your experimentation. That's where you can find the videos. Stop on by curiousrealm.com/videos, and you can subscribe to Rob's channel right there on YouTube. We embed all of our guest YouTubes right there, so they are nice and easy to find for all of you guys. Thank you so much, as always, everybody, for tuning in. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and remember, stay curious. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you for tuning into this episode of The Curious Realm. Stay tuned for more guests, forbidden topics, and hidden truths. Download the official Curious Realm app and view the Knowledge Vault on our website, curiousrealm.com. Follow us on social media by searching Curious Realm. Curious Realm is available on your favorite podcast services, as well as YouTube, Roku, Amazon Fire, and Apple TV through the APR TV app, available on all app markets. Curious Realm is a proud member of the HC Universal Network family of podcasts. For more great content or to become a sponsor of Curious Realm or other podcasts, visit hcuniversalnetwork.com today. Thanks for listening. Stay curious, and remember, the other side is always watching.